Okay, it's my pleasure to welcome back Gregory Stenstrom. He's a forensic investigator, patriot, author of The Parallel Election, which I highly recommend, and also a new publication called The Council. And we want to find out what you're doing legally. You're on the legal battlefield for quite a while. So
Yeah.
welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Richard. It's always a pleasure to be here and glad to talk to you before the show and excited about Rod of Iron. I'll be coming up. I know Leah's coming up. We got John Marietta, the hillbilly, coming up, and my shirt's
Yeah,
done too low here. 1 second,
yeah.
let me button that up. That's too much. Too much cleavage for an older guy. I just didn't have it buttoned. So yeah, it's a lot of exciting things going on. The interview that I did with Alex Jones and Roger Stone, CanCon, who's Badlands Media on Twitter. He has a big following. I was on Joe Altman last week as well. That's got a combined view of we estimate about 30 million people, 30 million different people.
Wow.
They all have kind of overlapping audiences, but different ones. So we were able to reach quite a few people with that. At this point, the article on the Intelligencer.today, yeah, Roger republished it. You can find it. You know, his website's good too. That article is available for download. If you go to the bottom, there's links. So far, it's been downloaded 32,800 times as of this morning.
Wow.
So it's getting that's not views. We have 30, you know, we're approaching 30 million views and 30 million views to the video and the video clips. But the thing has been a major hit. Thank God for that.
Well, tell us, what is the council for those who may not know? Who is the council? Who is running the United States of America?
The council is, and you have it there, you can bring it up. The council is actually a codified body. A lot of people will say the cabal, the deep state. You know, they use very amorphous things to describe who's running the country. But what we did is we simplified it. I authored the article. It's the intellectual property, mostly of my friend Colonel Schindler, also Dr. Schindler. Been working with him closely for the last year and a half, dissecting this thing. The council is actually the result of a legislative act in 1978 that created this sui generis, which means a stand apart. It's another word for untouchable organization. And if you go through there, those are the people that are currently at the top of the council, otherwise known as the CIGIE, C-I-G-I-E, Councils for the Inspector General and Integrity and Efficiency. That was a legislative act created to create this group of people from the FBI, the Department of Justice, and the Inspector General. And there's some subunits underneath them called the PIN, which is the Public Integrity Sector, and the Office of Professional Responsibility. So it consists primarily of the current U.S. Attorney General, former U.S. Attorney Generals, and then other people as you go through that list. So when people say the deep state, and they say who's running the country, it's these guys. And I often get asked, well, there must be somebody above them. You know, is there, you know, an occult group, or is it you know, globalists? Is it rich people? And right now, I don't have any observable facts for that. These guys are codified. But the bottom line is they can initiate any investigation on anybody they want. They can take pictures. They can, you know, go over their emails with illegal FISA warrants, and they can indict anybody they want, including the president. And they have. Jack Smith is on the council. And he is the one indicting President Trump. So whoever has the power to indict President Trump or order a SEAL team or Green Berets or Rangers to drop in, you know, somebody's house or send a cruise missile down a chimney, these are the guys. And, if you look at the assassination attempt on President Trump, which was, thankfully unsuccessful, but it was only in millimeters, a couple of centimeters right or left, and he'd be dead. And we can't get any answers on that gunfight. And the people that are supposed to provide those answers are the council.
And
They're investigating themselves.
And they cremated the body, so
Yeah.
you can't look at the shooter's body, or one of the shooters, right?
Yeah. And they were hosing down the crime scene, an hour after the, they didn't even have a crime scene. They would just sent the guy up. Everyone saw the videos of them hosing it down. They won't talk about the weapons. The head of the Secret Service, who's now resigned, was Cheadle. She was insolent to Congress, and so was Mayorkas, who was the head of DHS. He was insolent.
Right.
And then even Christopher Wray, who's the director of the FBI, says, it might have been hit by some dirt. The shooter's just a standalone guy, one 20-year-old kid who was, they want us to believe he flew a drone beforehand, walked around with a rangefinder, climbed up a ladder with a rifle, 120 yards from the president, in full view of police officers, Secret Service, FBI, and no one saw anything. So the absurdity of that, what I talk about most in the article about the council.
It's amazing how much contempt they have. I mean, they're not even trying to, they feel no obligation to answer any questions. Their level of contempt for the American people is just mind-boggling.
Right. So who could do that?
Right.
Who would have the power to do that? They don't report to anybody. Quite frankly, they've had presidents and political people reporting to them for decades. Jamie Raskin, who was in Congress and on the Judiciary Committee and Oversight. Chuck Grassley has been their foil and implementer of their agenda for his entire career. So when you look at these guys that are all identified in that article, and you just have to look at what they do. So what I tell people in the article, and I think this is biblical as well, is believe your own eyes, believe your own ears. Don't let anybody chew the dog food for you. And I don't remember which passage it is, but in the Bible, but it says the Lord of this world will blind and cause people to go deaf. They won't be able to see or hear. The Lord of this world is Satan. If you look at the Bible, and it's just basically these people who are just walking around in a mist or in a fog, they're blinded biblically. I think the people who are not blinded, it's all incredulous to us. We look at people that just say, go Harris. I'm not voting for, a felon. And, they believe everything they're told. You look at them and you go, what have you been drinking, or what are you eating? Because it makes no sense to the rest of us. So that's why the article was so important on the council. It really answered a lot of questions for people. Everything that emanates from the council, and they have a political arm, they have a business arm, they have an infiltration arm, intelligence arm, entertainment arm, propaganda arm. We identify all the people. I identified everyone. Here's their here's their picture, here's their face, here's their name, this is where they come from, this is what they do. Now trust your own instincts. Take any root cause. When someone says, well, George Soros is running everything, I go, really? How's he doing that? The council, our government paid him $1 billion, $1 billion, which he used to buy, DAs and do all kinds of, crazy, nefarious stuff.
Can you say more about that? You said that our government gave him
$1 billion with as in Bravo, $1 billion Bravo dollars.
Do you remember when that was and what it was for?
It's in the article. I don't have it in front of me, but
okay.
It's researched with a citation, and it says, look, they paid him $1 billion. If our government wanted to shut down Soros, it'd be simple. We could freeze his accounts, right? Think of what we could do: freeze accounts, extradite him, kick down his wall with robotic dogs, and and drag him out of it wherever he is. Drag his son out, Alex from New York. It's not, they're hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, well,
So,
they only do that to patriots and pro-life
right,
prayer warriors.
right. So if you look at it and you say, well, who's in charge of who? Can Soros indict anybody? Can he freeze anyone's account? Can he deploy military? Can he deploy FBI and government assets to go after anybody? No, he can spread some money around,
Right.
and he does so with abandon. But I use that as a root cause analysis.
Right.
So pick any figure, pick anything that happened, whether it's an assassination attempt or the removal of Joe Biden. I mean, he didn't go willingly. That was he reluctantly is stepped aside. Nancy Pelosi has already said the letter he supposedly signed is a fraud, and that our government, or the council, essentially has committed a coup d'etat, and that Eric Holder's walking around the White House right now running things. And obviously Obama would have a big influence there, but he's the one walking around the White House right now as a member of the council and running things. So who can remove a sitting president, who can install Kamala Harris without a primary, someone who got only less than 1% of the vote in the one primary she did, who could install her as president, who could assassinate Trump, who can quash and obstruct investigations into election fraud. That's what actually led me to the council in the first place. As I went through and we did our investigations, and we looked at the quashing and the obstruction of these election investigations and cases, it all led down to a handful of people that had that power. And that's when my friend Timothy got a hold of me, and we started talking and researching, and wrote the article to expose them. So that's where we are. At least we know who to stop and how to stop them. They can be stopped. They can be stopped.
Let me ask you about Kamala Harris for a second. So she was chosen without any democratic process whatsoever, and then the media has packaged her like a new product of Coca-Cola or something. And so tell us about the relationship between the council and the media, because the media obviously is part of their apparatus.
Right. Well, if it's a good reason to read the article and listen to the I think Alex Jones, the first interview, was probably the kind of laid it out the best. So if you look for that Alex Jones interview, and you look for the article and download it, we lay that out. And one of the things that they've been doing in the name of progressive social reconstruction, capitalism, communism, which is Capcom, and their overall goal is to extract the wealth from the United States. To them, this is a farm. We're just livestock. The United States, they're not just its stewards, self-appointed stewards, but they look at it as if they own it. It's theirs.
Right.
So when you look at it from that perspective, and you look at the way they see it, the first thing they did is in 1978, Department of Education, destroy the schools, destroy the churches, go after religious leaders. We have that's a topic for another day, but go after your religious leaders, assassinate people, assassinate world leaders. They want to defund the police, pay for BLM and Antifa. Who do you think's funding them? They want to wash money in the Ukraine, steal elections. They want people to feel like things are futile. Even if they don't know who it is, they want people to feel like there's nothing they can do.
Right.
That resistance is futile. So if they put in Mr. Potato Head, like Biden, I mean, the idea of Joe Biden winning the presidency and getting 81 million votes, I mean, you have to be at this point a complete moron to believe that. And you are, because over 80% of the country believes that election was stolen. That's Democrat and Republican. 80% believe that election was stolen. So if you're in the remaining 20% that thinks that everything is fine, my question to you would be, if you can try to assassinate a president and you can remove a sitting president and you can put in Mrs. Potato Head, then you can certainly steal an election. So if you're at that point now where you don't believe that, I actually don't waste time with those people at all. I don't try to convince them. I just look at it and say, believe your own eyes, believe your own ears,
Right.
look at the evidence, and believe your heart. And if their heart is that black where they can't see that, what's the point, Richard? I mean, have you got people, friends and family that you can't talk to?
Absolutely. They don't want to talk about it. They're not open to any information. It is very sad. Look, you've done amazing work you've written, well, both the parallel election and now the council, this piece about the council, but you've also been working in the legal area in a very deliberate way. I have to say, I think you and Leah you're like hunters who are quietly stalking the prey. So talk about the legal work that you've done. You had a victory, which we spoke about before, in Philadelphia. Bring our audience up to speed on your legal activities.
Sure. My background, for people who don't know me, is I was a former naval officer, 22 years. And then I went into information security and fraud investigations. I worked for our own government. I worked for federal, state, and municipal agencies in ferreting out public corruption. And so that's what I did for a long time. And I was recruited by Leah Hoops, who everyone here I think knows. And we saw the election fraud. I saw it in November, reported it. And
2020, you're talking
in
about.
2020, yeah. But we've seen it since 2022, 2023, 2024. At this point, it's pretty transparent. We know how they commit fraud. But back then, having been exposed and worked with, Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, Phil Klein, and other mainstream election integrity people, what I realized, and I said to Leah, is look at this, there's no Krakens, there's no easy answer, there's no SEAL teams, breaking into German data centers. There's, if there are satellites in Italy or Russian or Chinese interference, it's not like you're going to be able to prove it. So we have to develop a plan going to 2024, which we did. And part of that plan was that in order to catch bad guys and change things, you have to create an evidentiary base, and you have to put what we call litigative stakes in the ground. So we look at things and we say, hey, are you properly testing, validating, and certifying election machines? Well, no, you can't use them. Are you properly using mail-in ballots in accordance with the law? If you're not doing that, if you're not validating that someone's a qualified elector before you send them a mail-in ballot, you're breaking election law. Is there a reason to have centralized counting centers and only have one person in charge of a vote? No, it's unconstitutional. There's no codification. There's no law that says we have to set up centralized counting centers. They just did it. So we used to have, I think you're up in Pike County way, but in Delaware County, which is southeast Pennsylvania, we have 428 precincts. By law, we have to have 5 people per precinct: judge of elections, assistant judge of elections, two poll workers who are, managing the poll pads or the books and the blue books, the yellow books. And then there's an election machine, observer, repairer, watcher. So we have 5 people that are paid per precinct. 428 precincts, that's 2,140 people. I already did the math beforehand. I didn't have to do it in my head. So 2,140 people. Now you have 2 or 3 poll watchers, authorized representatives, Democrat, Republican, the candidates, lawyers. You got over 3,000 people before 2020 running the election in decentralized counties. Pretty hard to cheat. It still happened, but it was much, much harder. You couldn't cheat on the scale of millions of votes or hundreds of thousands of votes. So after Trump surprised Hillary Clinton in 2016, they said, this is never going to happen again. The council and the people who are running the country said, we already picked Hillary. Donald Trump is someone we absolutely don't want. He doesn't understand the plan. He's not one of us, and he's dangerous to us because the president of the United States, the Supreme Court, the House Judiciary Committee, in the Congress, Jim Jordan, could completely dismantle these guys. And they can't have Trump running around with that type of power. So, they went after him. So during that election, they went after Leah and myself, and we were co-defendants with President Trump. And they said, you've defamed, the counties, you've defamed election workers, you've defamed people by falsely stating there was massive election fraud. So we went to court. And we used, Leah and I represented ourselves pro se. So unlike everyone else, we just walked in and said, hey, truth is a complete defense. We can prove it. We can prove you committed fraud. We can prove you committed massive election fraud. You did every single thing we said you did and more. And we stuck to that. So for 958 days, we battled it out. And by the end of it, we had submitted 15,000 pages of documents, hours and hours of videos with election officials admitting they fabricated the vote. I mean, right on video, right. Admitting it, destroying evidence, audios of people admitting they committed fraud. The proof is overwhelming. It's outstanding. A lot of it's documented in the parallel election. So at the end, they said, hey, we can't beat you. You and Leah, it will make a deal. If you leave the case and leave President Trump and Rudy Giuliani, they already had $1 million judgment against Giuliani at that point. Right. If you leave them alone, leave them to us and leave them to a trial, we'll leave you alone. And Leah and I said, I think people know us well enough to say, no, we're not doing that. We want to go to trial. Let's go. We're gonna go to trial. We're gonna end up putting you all in prison when we're done. So they withdrew from the case. They discontinued the case. And we said, hey, not so fast. I mean, we're going to file a counterclaim at some time in the future. But we said this lawyer, and who is a proxy for the 65 Project and all the doxers and all the crazy people, he was a proxy. We said, hey, this guy lied, cheated, stole, kept us in court for almost 4 years. And we want him found guilty of misconduct, violations of the Pennsylvania rules of professional conduct. And people who do that get disbarred. So we said, well, it's not good enough that we're not going to file a judicial complaint and then let them decide. We want the judge to decide. So the judge, on June 12th, which is only a couple of months ago, he wrote an order. We had a couple of hearings. And he found the lawyer guilty of lack of candor before the court and pretty much gross misconduct. That lawyer has since surrendered his bar license. So that's a complete win. Some people said, well, you didn't win in court. I said, well, of course we did. The whole point of going there is if you can have the enemy withdraw from the battlefield, right? That's a win. If I don't have to fire a shot, and he leaves the battlefield, I win. So we won that case as co-defendants with President Trump. We used truth as a complete defense, and we proved massive election fraud. Wow. So, and we've been doing these litigative stakes in the ground. We've been going after, the machines, the testing, and we do things very strategically. As you said, every election, we work with a group of grassroots patriots who are hard workers, all very analytical, I'm going to say devout people. And we put together the cases, and we put together the right to knows and the investigations and the observations and the court cases. So at this point, we probably have about 80 court cases, and we have over 1,000 right to knows, FOIA requests. And we have absolute hard evidence of not only the election fraud that's occurred, but the election fraud that's going on right now, who's doing it, how they're doing it, how they're going to do it, how they're going to steal the election again in November 2024. They're absolutely going to steal the election in 2024. I mean, in 2 months from now, they're going to, on November 5th, they're going to announce Kamala Harris won. Maybe November 6th, depending on how, how bad she gets beaten by Trump. They're going to have to make a lot of stuff up, but they're going to announce it. They're just going to say Kamala wins, just like that. The vote doesn't have anything to do, the actual ballots don't have anything to do with the results that they announce. That's the cognitive dissonance people need to be aware of. But we have a solution for that and strategies for that we've already announced. And we said, look, the election's not over on November 5th or 6th. The election's not over until they certify on December 10th, the state legislature. So we have a lot we can do between now and then. We can show them the evidence of massive fraud, which we're collecting. We can do remonstrance, which is we can demand that they hear us, and they have to, by the way. We can do remonstrance even with the Congress, and I'm not going to go down that path and explain it all. But one of the things that has to happen is we have to file a federal case. We have a federal case that's been sitting in federal court now for over 90 days, sitting in front of a Biden appointee. She's not hearing the case. She's slow rolling it, and their intent is to let it simply expire and not be heard before the election. So what they didn't know is that actually played into our hands. We had to show that the Common Pleas Court, the Commonwealth Court, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, that the judges were crooked. You can't just say they're crooked. You can't wave your hands and talk about krakens. You got to put cases in place and show who the corrupt officials are, who the corrupt judges are, and then make your case. So we just filed, or we're filing, you can bring it up on the screen. I think that's, at this point, it would be a, let me share my screen. It's just a quick look, because people keep hearing about this thing and they're wondering what we're doing. Okay, screen 2. I'll share that. You're going to see us, and now I'm just going to bring up this this case, and hopefully you can see that. Can you see that, Richard?
Yeah, this to the Supreme
Yeah,
Court
this is, we're just finishing this, and these are all the people, unlike other cases that have been filed with the federal courts and the Supreme Court. All of these people here all have standing as candidates, authorized representatives, certified poll watchers, and everybody here has participated at some point since 2020 in lawsuits, right to knows, and litigative action to force our recalcitrant counties to obey the law. So one of the things we're doing different this time, and different from everyone else, is we're just suing the counties. Actually, Westmoreland County is not on there, but they will be. But these are we're just suing the counties: Delaware County, Fayette County, Lancaster, Chester, and Montgomery, and Westmoreland, because that's where all these people are. And this is where we file these cases. An emergency petition for writ of mandamus is basically a plea to the Supreme Court. The first person who will review this will be Alito, and then he'll decide whether he's going to, pitch it to the rest of the Supreme Court. So he could hear the case himself, or we could get an en banc with the rest of the Supreme Court. And we're basically telling them they have to comply with law, which is they can't use the election machines if they're not certified. They can't use, they have to canvass mail-in ballots, and voters who aren't qualified can't cast them. The centralized counting centers have to go because it's wrong. It's matters of law. So these things are pretty well structured. You have questions of law that are presented, federal law. Then you make your argument, you present your cases, but it's pretty well structured. There's all the different laws that apply to elections. Just scrolling through it real quick. The related cases, which this is an older version. That's all filled in now. Questions presented to the court. They're going to be acted on by the court. All the parties. This is an older version. Everything's filled in now. Standing, statement of the case, concise, constitutional provisions. Just scrolling through it. jurisdiction, and then the argument. Now, what makes our case different is our argument is supported by evidence. We can state that, ballots weren't correctly counted, that they didn't do return boards, that they didn't certify the machines. So most of the other previous cases have been constitutional questions, really not talking about hard evidence, but, different things that the Supreme Court's just not going to hear. Supreme Court is not going to intervene in the way a state runs its elections.
Right.
You have to show fraud and violations of federal law for them to act on. They're not going to get involved in state issues. That's what we've been doing for the past 4 years. So what we did is all these things here, we talk about what's happened in the last 4 years and why the Supreme Court has to do something. Now, one of the reasons strategically for writing that article on the council is that they mean to do away with the Supreme Court. They want to install inspector generals and take over all 94 federal courts, the U.S. Supreme Court, and basically take that court under their control. If this election doesn't go the right way, I'm going to say the right way, meaning the voice of the people is not heard, then you can say goodbye to the Supreme Court. It's gone. And we talk about that right in here. Grassley's advocating for it to change the Supreme Court. They've written a memorandum on behalf of Biden to change the Supreme Court. Jamie Raskin, a congressman, is calling for civil war. They're off their rockers. So I think that at this point, the Supreme Court, it's not a matter if they want to hear it, they have to hear it. And the biggest thing that they have to hear is right here, the Supreme Court's role in redressing systemic constitutional violations. They are the final arbitrators of constitutional disputes, and that's where we are today. That's it. If they don't step up, it's over. So this is a pretty straightforward case.
Let me ask you something. I mean, the Supreme Court has denied standing. They several attorney generals of a number of states tried to bring up the election issues, and they say you lack standing. It looks to me like, I mean, they even said that it's okay for the government to tell the social media platforms what they should censor, and they said that there's no problem with that. So why do you tell our audience why? I think you're still sharing the screen, by the way.
Turn that off. How do I turn it off there? Just unshare it?
Maybe at the bottom it says stop share. I don't know.
I think it says stop. Can you see me, or it says?
I see you. Anyway.
I stopped sharing, so.
Oh, okay. All right.
But tell them about, well, the first thing is this is a long plan.
Right.
It's actually over 100 years old, but they codified and they went to full gear starting in 78. If you had a 24-hour clock and you looked at when the end of our republic is, as we grew up with our republic, we're in the final 3 minutes.
Right.
This is it. The next 60 to 70 days, which has already been decided, right, as this has been set up for the last 100 years. But during Obama administration, who reported to the council, by the way, they repealed a Propaganda Act that had been in place since 1948, so that they could allow the government to do propaganda. So the propaganda czar is named in that paper. His name is Joel Eisen. So not Joel, Joel Eisen. So when we give his bio, we give his picture, we tell people what he's done. And if you want to know who's directing the censorship and the propaganda, it's him. That's it. Real simple. We tell them who it is, how they did it, why they're doing it, and what they need. And they need to narcotize our republic. They need to put people to sleep. The biggest thing they need to do is make us feel like there's nothing we can do and feel futile. It's one of the reasons they attack God so much. These people they're beyond evil. They don't have any beliefs like we do. There's no heaven or hell for them. There's no repercussions for them.
Well, they're beyond those categories of good and evil.
Yeah,
They're their own God, right? So
that's probably the best description I've heard, and especially coming from your background, reading the divine principles and so forth, that they are their own gods,
right,
and they just don't see the world the way the rest of the people. But what's most surprising is, again, they telegraph everything they're going to do, whether it's narcissism, arrogance, occult, karma, where they project, they tell us what they're going to do.
right,
And I think there's part of that where they figure, hey, if we tell you what we're going to do, we're going to kill 5 billion of you.
right,
They keep saying it. We're going to kill
right,
5 billion of you.
right,
We're going to poison you, and we're going to do it with vaccines. That's what we're going to do. We're going to fake a pandemic. They projected that years ago.
right,
I mean, I saw this coming. I projected the pandemic
right,
in 2018 and then again in 2019. You go to my Facebook and say, hey, we're going to have a corona pandemic, and it's going to start around December or January. And I followed it the whole way. Anybody who goes back and looks at my Facebook posts historically, if anybody here is friends, you can go right back.
right,
They told us they were going to do this. They told us they were going to steal the elections. They told us they hate God. For people who don't believe in God, they sure as heck hate him and resent him. And they resent any religion or anything that is not of them.
right,
They think we're idiots for believing in a creator. And they just as soon see us dead as alive. I think when people understand that and really wrap their heads around it, it really gets easy. It's simple. It's simple
right.
for, Richard, I know a large part of your audience, Rod of Iron, read the Divine Principles. I got that right? It's been a while since
Yeah,
I read it. I don't know if I got the title right,
yeah, that's right.
but,
Yeah,
for anybody who's got a belief in a creator,
right,
a God, we see right through them, but they think we're the crazy ones. So
right,
I'm
right,
telling
right,
people just to prepare. I mean, the big thing to your, the people who are listening, just to say, now is the best time to have faith. Now is the best time to be bringing other people to your faith and your children. Now is the best time to prepare your minds
right,
for what's going to happen. Everybody saw the assassination of Trump.
right.
But no matter how shocking it was to think of, seeing it was
That's right.
really shocking. So when they see this happening with Camilla, what we don't want people to do is we don't want them to panic. We
Right,
should look at, there's a plan. We're working the plan. I don't know if we'll be successful, but all we can do is fight. I know people up there, people in Pike County. Are you, Richard, are you in Pike? Or are you next?
on
You're in the
Pike,
next. You're in
Pike.
Pike.
Yeah.
People in Pike County are fighting. I encourage everyone to show up to Rod of Iron. We're going to be there. It's going to be a good time. I'm bringing friends this time, friends
Good.
and family. So I would encourage people to show up and vote on election day. Bring a box lunch, bring some water, bring a grill, prepare for a long day. But whatever you do, don't get out of line until you vote. If you lost your mail-in ballot, go down to the government center and vote early. You just go down and say, look, I never got my mail-in ballot. As long as one hasn't already been cast for you,
Right,
what they'll do is they can remove that ballot. They'll issue another one right there, and you can vote. I don't recommend waiting until election day if
right.
you've lost your mail-in ballot. For people who have their mail-in ballot in hand, I recommend going down on election day, saying, hey, I want to vote in person, and I'm going to surrender my ballot. Now, if they surrender their ballot and they don't have a record of them voting, they just give them a regular ballot and they vote in person, and the mail-in ballot's destroyed. The big problem will be people who show up and say, I'm here to vote in person. Here's my mail-in ballot. And they're going to tell them you already voted.
Right.
And it's going to happen to tens of thousands of people.
Right.
And what I'm going to tell people is stay calm, relax. What we need at that point is documentation.
Right.
So you're going to file your provisional ballot because it's all you can do. The law
Right.
will not, there's nothing the election workers can do. If you're in that book as having voted already, there's nothing they can do. They can't say, well, we'll just give you a ballot anyways. And it wouldn't make a difference because they'll just cancel the vote out. What
Right.
you want to do is to say that ballot shouldn't have been counted that day on election day. It shouldn't have been counted yet. I can find that ballot, pull that ballot, and get it out of the system as a poll, down at the precincts and down at the centralized counting center. But what we really need is you to file a police report.
Right.
Don't call a cop. They'll be busy that day. They'll be running around trying to keep, things calm and doing their daily job. You can file a police report later on that day, the next morning. We're going to have a bunch of downloads on Patriot Online for people to download a police report. You file a thing called a HAVA report, HAVA, Hotel Alpha, Victor Alpha. Just these are short reports, and you're going to file them, upload them to Patriot Online, or work with people in your county, and you say, okay, somebody committed election fraud. I need to know that, so that when we file remonstrance with the legislature, I can go to the legislature, and other people will be working with me and say, look, we had 5,000 people that this happened to in Delaware County. We had 200 in Pike County. We had 3,000 in Westmoreland. So now I go to the legislature. They cannot certify a fraudulent vote. They must investigate, they must adjudicate voter fraud before they can certify. What they've been doing is they've been certifying anyways. They haven't been able to reconcile a vote yet. They haven't done an investigation yet. They just rubber stamp the thing, and our representatives and our Senate in Pennsylvania just go merrily along, and it's that is no evidence. And no one's going to do anything to me anyways. Well, what's happened in the last 4 years is, Pat Stefano, who was in Fayette County.
We're running out of time, but
okay. So, we got a plan. I want people to keep the faith, and I probably talk longer as I always do.
no,
Look,
this is amazing. I really want to urge all of our audience to go to patriot.online, also go to intelligencer.today, and you'll see the article on the council who's running the United States of America. And we're praying for your victory, Gregory, and for Leah and all of you, and for the Supreme Court to do the right thing.
Yeah.
That's
one thing I would say I would ask for, Richard. I don't do a good job of this, and I never ask for donations because I just felt funny doing it, and people, it kind of plays into people's, oh, he's doing this for money, but it's going to cost about between $6,000 to $10,000 just for the filing to print the book. Now we're going to file electronically, so it'll be in their hands by tomorrow, but we still have to.
Where can people donate?
They just go to patriot.online, and when they go to www.patriotonline or Patriot Online, there's a donate button at the top. Click on that. Anything you can send would be great. You can also go to no, I don't think it's working. Just go to patriot.online, hit donate there. Or you can buy a book, The Parallel Election. We make a couple of dollars, $1 per copy. We don't make much. There you go, right there. Just click
all
on
right, go to patriot.online and donate.
Donate right at the top there. Click that button. There you go. And then hit the donate.
Okay.
Easy squeezy. Right. I hardly ever ask, but since
no. Listen, you and Leah and others you're on the front line. I know this has not been. You don't really talk about the sacrifice that you and your families have gone through, but we know a little bit about it, and you deserve every bit of support. I totally agree. And I thank you again, Gregory, for coming on the show, and we'll see you at the Freedom Festival, and God bless.
I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to it.